Hello, how's it, everybody? Welcome to my kitchen. I'm so excited. So tonight we've got Kate Miller is joining me, and Kate has an amazing story. So what I've been waiting for somebody to come and share a really good nutritional story. You know, there are two things about this forum that have evolved for me. You know, yes, we all have a story. We actually all do. The fact that you're alive means you have a story. You're in the process of your story, you're alive. You might have not completed it, but you certainly have a couple of chapters. The second thing is that this is about not just a story. Hello, Mans, as I'm seeing my friends pop on, I love it. It's about inspiring. So I really want all of you to be able to leave here feeling better or learning something from having spent an evening with us. And the thing is, this is our community. This is how we expand. This is how we heal, when we come together, when we collaborate, when we share our stories. And when something which is so special about Kate's story is when your story is bigger than you. So you could have something that you're sharing because it's interesting, it's the experience you've had, but this story that she's going to share with you is a story that she has to tell you. Because by her telling you, she's sharing and she's sharing her ability to educate, to heal, and to inspire. So I'm not giving a lot away. I'm going to kind of keep it in wraps so that Kate tells you her story. But just welcome to our kitchen. Tonight is really about nutrition, gut health, and the most remarkable story with so much perseverance and power behind it. So, Kate, thank you for joining me in my kitchen tonight.
Thanks so much, Elaine. Thanks for having me here. And yeah, I just want to welcome everyone. I'm so excited to be here tonight. So yeah, cheers. I've got my tea, cheers for wine.
Cheers, everybody.
Something. Yeah, so I'll take you back. So my life changed quite drastically 6 or 7 years ago. And I basically had to redefine my physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being in order to heal. And a huge emphasis was on gut health and a gut healing protocol. And so my story really does go way, way back. So I'm going to take you all the way back to my childhood, if you don't mind, and we'll start there. So I grew up on a beautiful citrus farm in the Eastern Cape, and in an area called Addo. And I had quite a cool upbringing. My friends and I used to build shelters in the windbreaker trees, and we used to ride our pink BMX bicycles through the mud, and we'd swim in the dams, and eventually a few of us got four-wheelers and we'd cruise around the orchards on the four-wheelers. And yeah, and when I was about 8 years old, I went with my mum and some of her friends from Durbs and one of my really good friends. We decided to go to the Addo Elephant National Park. And I think it was on a Saturday or a Sunday. And we arrived there, and about an hour or so in, I was stung by a bee. And I remember saying to my mum, "Mum, my throat feels funny." And basically I went into anaphylactic shock. And she had to rush me to our local doctor. And by that stage, I was unconscious. My mum's friend actually had to carry me in to the doctor's home. And he administered an EpiPen or an adrenaline injection. And he literally saved my life. I was seconds away from death. And so after that experience, the pediatrician and my folks said, you know what, let's desensitize Kate against bees. So I was injected with bee venom every week, every 2 weeks, every month, every 6 months, every year for 4 years. And during that time, I had another 2 adrenaline injections because I had a reaction to bee venom. And yeah, so that was sort of a 4-year process. And when I was 12 years old, I went off to boarding school. So we went to the little farm school, and then there wasn't a secondary school. So we always knew we were going to go off to boarding school. And so I went off to boarding school, 12 years old, grade 7. And that's when I really started noticing that my allergies, it's when my allergies really started sort of getting out of control. So for the next 12 years, I lived on antihistamines every day, nose sprays. I was taking decongestants. I was taking anti-inflammatories. I was also taking cortisone injections. And also I had these chronic sinus infections. So I was on antibiotics every few months. And I just remember always being in the sand, which was like our sick bay. I was sick all the time. I had brain fog. I had swollen glands. And I always felt absolutely exhausted. I always had sort of tissues falling out of my sleeves. And anyway, the years went by, and in my matric year, I was made prefect and head of Interact, and I was under a little bit of pressure, and I was struggling a bit with anxiety. So I went and saw a doctor, and he said, Kate, you know what? It's your last 6 months of your matric year. Let's pop you on antidepressants. And so I was, at that age, I was a 17-year-old girl, and I was taking antihistamines every day, nose sprays, decongestants, anti-inflammatories, antibiotics, and now I'd been put on antidepressants. And anyway, so I went off to varsity after school, and I was at Stellenbosch University for 4 years. And I studied a PPE, Politics, Philosophy, and Economics, and I did honors in political science. And, we had the best time of our lives. We worked really, really hard, but we also partied very hard. So there was quite a lot of alcohol involved. And in those years, I really did love my wine. And I wondered why I was sick all the time. And little did I know, or unbeknown to me, I was highly allergic to preservatives. So those sulfites in the wine were doing me no good. They were giving me heart palpitations, and they were aggravating sinus infections and all of that. So anyway, so those 4 years, hard work, partying, lots of cortisone injections. Also, I was still on the antihistamines and all that medication. And after my varsity years, I went to, I did an internship at a marketing agency. So I was about 21 years old, had absolutely no knowledge on marketing. And after the month internship, they said, Kate, would you like to stay on? We'd love to have you. So I said, okay, cool, why not? I really like the company, amazing people. But for those of you who know the marketing industry, it's quite high pressure, insanely long hours. I wasn't really making time for sort of lunch breaks. I had absolutely no interest in nutrition at that sort of stage. So I wasn't worried about sort of what food. I mean, I'd been fairly healthy, but I wasn't too interested in nutrition. And it was just super, super high stress. And after about 2 years, I started struggling quite a lot with anxiety. And I also had some GI issues, so gastrointestinal issues. So I went and saw a gastroenterologist, and he said, you know what, Kate, I'm not going to do a colonoscopy. He ruled out a few things, and he said, you probably have irritable bowel syndrome. And he said as a joke, whatever you do, don't visit Asia anytime soon. And a few weeks later, my boyfriend and I packed up our bags and we moved to Hong Kong. And so we moved to Hong Kong. It's one of the craziest decisions I've ever made. We stayed in a really, really crummy bachelor pad, which didn't have a ceiling. We slept on a futon on the floor in a makeshift, you can't even call it a bedroom. It was like a tiny, teeny room. And there wasn't a kitchen. I used to wash the dishes in a basin in the shower. And the first week that I was in Hong Kong, my boyfriend found me unconscious on the bathroom floor. And we didn't really know anyone in Hong Kong. We were in a really local area in Hong Kong. So he carried me called a taxi, carried me, popped me in the taxi, and took me to the first public hospital he could find. And, you know, most of Hong Kong is quite English, but the area that we were in, that specific hospital, there wasn't a lot of English spoken. And so I barely remember too much of the first part of it, but I just remember them popping me on a drip and putting me in some really old, like, grandpa pajamas, and they put me in a wheelchair. And as they were wheeling me to the lift, they said to my boyfriend, no, you can't come up. Like, you can't come to the room. So I'm an only child. My boyfriend had to go, or my boyfriend at the time, had to go back to our apartment and phone my mom. My mom's name's Maffy, and say, Maffy, listen, Kate's in hospital, in this public hospital, and I can't go up to the room, and I actually don't know what's wrong with her. And so anyway, yeah, that night in hospital, I still, yeah, I've done actually quite a lot of reflection on that night. And I did an Instagram live with Amy, and I was just chatting to her last night. And I literally still remember that, or I only remember that night in black and gray. It's the weirdest thing, because it was one of the worst experiences of my life. I literally thought I was going to die. I've never been so sick in my entire life. I prayed for my life. And yeah, and anyway, I woke up the next day and they discharged me from the hospital. And I thought, okay, that was the worst night of my life, but maybe it was food poisoning, or maybe it was a 24-hour stomach bug. But thank goodness it's over. And little did I know, it was actually just the start. So from that day on, for the next 7 months, I had diarrhea to the extent that I would black out. My employer would find me unconscious on the bathroom floor. If I felt a blackout sort of coming, I'd lie down before I did black out. My hair started falling out. I started losing a lot of weight. My eyesight started deteriorating noticeably. I had excruciating bone pain and joint inflammation. I had terrible GI symptoms, so I was reacting to almost every single food that I ate. I had bloating to the extent that I wouldn't be able to wear pants for a week at a time. I just wear dresses because it was so uncomfortable. I started having anxiety attacks on my walk to work in the mornings. And the big one was chronic fatigue. So the chronic fatigue, that's when it sort of kick-started. And I was just sleeping whenever I could. So I was sleeping on the train. I was sleeping almost 3 times a day. And Elaine, I know you and I sort of chatted about this, but the crazy thing is that even though all these symptoms were starting to snowball, you start adapting to a new normal. And so even though I was so sick, I was still so excited to be in Hong Kong. I was going for frozen margaritas with my Texan and UK friends. We were going to a place called Tequila Jack's for frozen margaritas. And just trying to explore Hong Kong in between all these, crazy symptoms. And anyway, so that had been about 7 months, and sort of the months just kept going and going. And I started seeing a few doctors in Hong Kong, and I wasn't getting any better. And I then found an incredible naturopath, and he did quite a lot of tests, and he did comprehensive stool analysis. And he said, Kate, listen, I think you've picked up a vicious bacterium, and I think it's wreaking havoc on your gut. And we really, really need to sort this out. And so I started working with him, but my symptoms were just getting worse and worse. And the one day I was on the train on the way to work, and I was chatting to my mum, and my mum said, Katie, listen, my parents had come to visit me a few months back, and they'd got quite a fright when they'd seen how my health had deteriorated. And they said to me, my mum said to me, Katie, you need to come home. We need to sort this out. So I moved back to South Africa, and I went and stayed on our citrus farm for 9 months. And I literally saw every single specialist my mum could find. I worked with an endocrinologist for quite a long time, and he diagnosed me with chronic fatigue syndrome. And he put me off work for a year. And at this stage, I was 26 years old. And so over the next few years, I was not only diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, but I was also told I had fibromyalgia, endometriosis, estrogen dominance, adrenal fatigue, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And this was on top of the IBS, the allergies, the asthma. And I went to a pulmonologist and he said, Kate, if you don't take these 2 pumps, you'll also get emphysema by age 50. And so, you know, I sort of was receiving these diagnoses, and the endocrinologist was putting me on all this medication and corticosteroids, and I was just getting worse and worse. It just felt like my body was completely shutting down. It almost felt like I'd completely lost my sense of self. And the chronic fatigue had gotten so bad that I would wake up in the morning and make my bed, and I'd be so exhausted from making my bed that I'd get back into my bed and sleep for the rest of the day. Or some days, all I'd do is I would literally motivate myself. I'd say, Kate, you're not going to die, just go and get in the shower. So I'd actually have to motivate myself to go and shower. At other times, I would drive to the grocery store when I was in PE, and it would be a 15-minute drive. And I was so sensitive, hypersensitive, that was kind of complete overstimulation. And so I'd get to the grocery shop or Warmer Park, which was the shopping center, and I'd be so exhausted from driving that I wouldn't be able to get out and go and buy the groceries. So I'd get in the car and I'd drive home and I'd sleep for the rest of the day. Or I'd try and go, I'd be frustrated and I'd go for a 2-kilometer run, and that would set me back for weeks. Or I'd go to a friend's wedding and we'd dance till 2 in the morning, and that once again would set me back for weeks. And so it just went sort of on, and the months had started to turn into years. And I'd got to the point where I was absolutely, completely desperate. And so I decided to study a diploma in clinical nutrition through Sally Ann Creed, through an Australian academy. And that was purely just to better understand the human body, and see if I could somehow take my power back in some way, because I just felt like I just wasn't getting the answers. And I'd also heard about something called the GAPS diet, or the gut and psychology syndrome. And it's an adaptation from the specific carbohydrate diet. And it was this little yellow book. And I just decided, it was sort of my last go, and I just decided to give this diet everything that I had. So I used to just carry this book around everywhere. And I basically locked myself away for about 3 months, and I lived on bone broths and soups and steamed vegetables, and I made my own fermented foods and slowly worked in fermented foods. And after about 3 months, I started noticing a difference in my mood and my energy levels. Something started to slowly shift. But after 8 months on that diet, it was like night and day. There was some kind of clarity, some huge shift. And my energy had been better than it had been in years. My food intolerances were so much better. I was able to eat so many more foods. My anxiety had basically gone. My mood in general had lifted. My endometriosis, all the pain, and sort of those PMS symptoms that I'd experienced, that had completely gone away. And I was so sort of blown away by this gut healing protocol. And I was so excited about gut health, because I mean, 6 or 7 years ago, we hadn't heard too much about gut health. And I was like, oh my gosh, I absolutely have to share this message. This is huge. Like, everybody has to know about gut health and the power of healing your gut. And so one of my, actually Heather, who's on tonight, her daughter told me about a health coaching institute. And so I started to become a health coach. I started their training program, and it was such a beautiful course, because not only was I becoming a health coach, it was a healing experience for myself as well, doing that course, which was so incredible. And after the health coaching course, I also decided to study. I became a certified neuro-linguistic programming practitioner, because I also understood the need to better understand sort of the emotional aspects of things, and looking within it and at your inner dialogue and resolving past traumas and breaking sort of negative habits or not negative habits that just aren't serving you anymore. And also limiting beliefs, looking at limiting beliefs. So I did that. And then I also did a 7-month gut health course through my institute. And after that, I've actually just recently completed a foundations course in nutrigenomics, which is, I offer genetic testing. I'm still being mentored, but it's basically the idea you look at how nutrients act on your genes, and we all have a genetic makeup. Our genetic makeup stays the same, but we have the power to change the way our genes express themselves. We have the power to turn our genes on and off through diet and lifestyle changes, which is like mind-blowing. And so I did all these courses which helped me along my healing journey and which I've included and incorporated in my coaching. But not only that, I also worked with the most incredible integrative doctor. And she literally changed my life. So with the gut healing protocol, she was able to, she understood my body on such an incredible level that she was able to go upstream and look at where sort of my cellular pathways, what needed more help, whether it was detoxification or inflammation or oxidative stress, whatever it was. So she sort of took my health to the next level. I'm still actually working with her. She's absolutely incredible. So yeah, and also just to put in, so the doctor, one of the doctors that had worked with me, I don't know, it was 10 or 12 years ago, he said to me, you know, Kate, you're allergic to grass, pollen, and dust. And he said, you know, you'll have to take this medication for the rest of your life. And this was, you know, I don't know, more than a decade ago. And since I've changed my diet, I've never ever had to touch that medication that I was told that I would spend the rest of my life on. I've never had a sinus infection since I've changed my diet. Absolutely nothing in the past 6 or 7 years. So yeah, that's a little bit about my journey, and in a nutshell, because it's been a lot and it's been a long process, but it's been wonderfully fulfilling along the way, because I've also found my calling, which is absolutely incredible.
Sure. That's amazing, Kate. Just remarkable. I know that everybody's sitting here quite glued, and your story is so powerful because it was so extreme. And it really, like, you can feel that difference of when somebody has a career and somebody has a vocation, and your health or lack thereof or issues with it brought you to find your vocation, which is amazing. And I mean, we're so grateful to hear it. So I wanted to just ask you, you were talking about the lady that you are working with, and so what does she do exactly? Like, what kind of medical doctor is she, or what modality does she work with?
Yeah, so she is a qualified medical doctor, but she has done, you know, functional medicine. I mean, she's been in the field for many years, but she's done sort of functional medicine courses. So what she does is she's one of the most compassionate women I've ever met. So she really focuses on your story, and she does look at diet and lifestyle, but she will try, and she does all the lab testing, the comprehensive stool analysis. We did glutathione, IV drips, all those things. So it's all the lab testing, but she tries to heal you by supporting you through vitamins and minerals and herbal supplementation. If she doesn't notice changes to that, she can go to conventional medicine, but generally it's all sort of natural medicine. And yeah, so it's made such a huge difference. And I think also, it's not to say, you know, we chatted about this on Wednesday, there's definitely a place for Eastern and Western medicine, without a doubt. But I think if you start looking at your NSAIDs and antibiotic use. So NSAIDs are non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen and aspirin. If you're reaching for those, every day or every other day, if you're taking antibiotics regularly, I mean, we know antibiotics are overprescribed. So you just need to create awareness around those things and say, and antibiotic means anti-life. So I'm all about pro-life and supporting your gut bacteria. You want those good guys, you want them to grow, you want a variety of them, you want an abundance of them in your gut. So that's why I'm so excited that there are wonderful natural supplements that actually support your microbial population or your gut bacteria instead of breaking them down.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's also quite a well-known, well, now we're in an age, gratefully, we're in an age where it's more commonplace to understand that nutrition is so important, and that the gut is the second brain. So, I mean, we chatted about it yesterday. Time is a whole different thing for me at the moment. But, everything, all diseases emanate, most diseases, we would say probably 90% of diseases really are affected by the gut, the relationship and the gut health.
100%. So I think they say there are about 170 diseases that are directly connected to gut health, and about 90% of disease can be traced back to an unhealthy gut. So that's things from allergies, asthma, autoimmune diseases, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, arthritis. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And some of the symptoms that we don't think about with gut health are the chronic fatigue and the adrenal fatigue and headaches and skin issues, eczema, low libido, anxiety, depression. Sometimes we don't link those things directly to our guts.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, you had started off, and I agree. I think that there has to be a collaboration, or maybe a better collaboration between the West and the East. I think coming together, recognizing the positive aspects of both working together, not focusing on the opposition. That's kind of just a pointless thing. So the bringing together is the healing. But because the natural plan of action was to go to the Western doctors when you were younger, now hearing your story and where it's evolved to in your healing, one realizes how things are so holistic. I mean, it really, that's the way one has to approach it. And that's seems to be, if we moved into that kind of mindset for all disease, for all discomfort, dis-ease, we how we think affects how the food goes down. Yesterday you said to me, it's all good and well someone eating healthily, and you can have that salad or eat as much kale as you want to, but quite frankly, if you're eating it with absolute disgust, have the burger with love.
Yeah, that's what my health coaching, what I focus on is it's your primary and your secondary food. So it's things that nourish you both on and off your plates, because that's ultimately well-being. So I speak about your primary food as your spirituality, your exercise, your career, and your relationships. And then your secondary food is your diet. So exactly what you're saying, you can eat all the kale in the world, but if you're in toxic relationships, if you feel spiritually disconnected, whichever way you give or how you give spirituality meaning, if you're not moving to move, and if you don't feel like you have purpose, or you're not doing the work you love, then it's sort of unlikely you're going to be living that sort of vibrant, optimal life. Elaine, I've just lost you.
Can you hear me? Can other people hear me? Am I around? Am I back?
You're back. You went away for a second.
I had little gremlins working behind the scenes. So some of you who don't know me can hear I have no problem talking. But I'd like to open it up And Kate is here. I'd love you to feel free to ask absolutely any health gut related question to Kate. All you have to do is either wave your hand, unmute yourself, and just ask away. I will try and sort of, you don't have to wait for your name, just go ahead and ask away.
Hi, Elaine.
Hi, Terry.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm so pleased you're on. Nice to see you.
So Andre's here with me as well. He's very interested in nutrition and all these things. So thank you for all of that. Fantastic. I want to know you're a vegetarian.
I'm not vegetarian.
Yeah.
So I have a plant-centric based diet, but I still do eat fish and lamb and chicken. But I'm very careful with where I source my animal products from. So I don't eat dairy, gluten, sugar, or sort of food additives or preservatives. So I focus on a whole foods diet, and the majority is plant-based, but I do still incorporate meat. And, you know, I've played around with that quite a lot. And I do believe with my clients that I work with, I've got vegans and vegetarians, and I do believe it's a bio-individual thing. It depends a lot on, also it can depend sort of on your genetic makeup, your glucose and insulin. But I often say the most important thing, whether you're plant-based or animal-based, the three things to focus on are fiber, fiber, fiber. Fiber is my favorite F word. Yeah. So always go huge on the fiber, especially prebiotics. We hear about probiotics all the time, which are amazing, and you can find those in fermented foods and supplements. But prebiotics are a form of soluble fiber, and they are essential. They are the food for our gut bacteria. Our gut bacteria love to eat prebiotics. And you can find that in most fruits and veggies, but prebiotic-rich foods are like raw garlic, raw onions, kiwis, chicory roots, bananas, that kind of thing. So prebiotics are absolutely essential. So fiber is the sort of first, we need, a healthy person needs about 29 to 40 grams of fiber a day. The majority of people aren't getting enough fiber in. It's actually a huge problem. It's where I start usually with my clients. I also tell them to check in with their bowel movements or get clued up with their bowel movements. So I get them to look or keep a poop log as well. It's also an essential indicator of where your gut's at or your gut health. And yeah, other than fiber, just looking at your protein intake, whether you're plant-based or animal-based, you can get beautiful plant proteins. You need complementary plant proteins, and then healthy fats as well are essential for your gut microbiome.
Great. That's interesting. Thanks.
Pleasure. I hope that...
Can we just ask something, Andre?
Sorry, I'm really finding the talk very interesting. Thank you. So if you had to summarize what you recommend, so if you eat whole foods, whole plant-based foods, and you'd like to also have prebiotics, what else do you focus on? Are there any secrets that you add to your diet?
So
summary of it.
Yeah, so once again, it's a by individual thing. So I usually sit with my clients, I do a health history with them, which is a 3-page health history, just understanding everything from what they ate as a child to what they eat now, to their ancestry, their major health concerns. We all have different difficulties. We all have different genetic makeups, and we all have different bacterial compositions. But one of the things that I like to do is to compare your gut microbiome to a garden. So I always say, you know, we have this beautiful garden. Each of our gardens are very, very different. And some of us have left our gardens unattended for a little longer than others. So for me, I left mine unattended for very, very long. And so there were a lot of weeds, and there was a lot of work that I needed to do. So when I speak about sort of de-weeding your garden, you can look at, the first thing is to look at your intake of over-the-counter medication, your NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, antibiotics. You can look at inflammatory foods. So inflammatory foods, they can be different for different people, but dairy comes up, gluten, also the casein in dairy, it's a protein found in dairy, is quite inflammatory. Alcohol, too much red meat, etc. So there are a lot of different inflammatory foods, food additives, which you find in almost absolutely everything. Another thing is having a look at your antibacterial products that you're using and your household cleaning products and your sort of beauty or skincare products. It's important that we start living sort of a detox lifestyle. So what we don't realize is if you look at the things that you're using on a daily basis, the washing powder and the skin creams and the toothpaste and the deodorants and the soaps and all those things, that's a huge number of chemicals that you are putting into or on your body. And your liver and your gut, because your gut and your liver are your major detox organs, they still have to detox those things every day. So if you can lessen your toxic load with those, that's also a huge one. Bowel movements is huge as well, making sure that your bowel movements are regular. You can check out something called the Bristol stool charts. It gives different types of bowel movements. And it's something that I do with my clients every week or every 2 weeks. We check in with bowel movements to see what's happening, because it's a really nice indication of whether you have some kind of pathogen. You might have a bacterial overgrowth or a fungal overgrowth or IBS, or you may be needing more fiber. So those kinds of things. And then if we think about, so that's like de-weeding your garden. If we think about bringing in sort of the fertilizer or the nourishing things, those would be the probiotics, the prebiotics. They're beautiful gut healing supplements, but everyone is completely different. And you also have to be quite careful with natural products or natural supplements, because they're super, super powerful. So they can also have quite adverse effects if you're not careful. But there are basic things like L-glutamine and slippery elm and marshmallow roots. Digestive enzymes can make a huge difference. What else? Yeah, probiotics for some people. Other people choose just to get their probiotics from fermented foods. So, and then also stress management techniques. So I don't know if you've heard of something called the vagus nerve. I'm not sure if anyone knows about the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is the longest nerve in your autonomic nervous system, and it runs from your brainstem to your gut. And it's basically like a telephone line between your gut and your brain, and then neurotransmitters running up and down that constantly. So that's how your gut and your brain are in constant communication. And by strengthening your vagal tone, it helps you build resilience to stress, or strengthening your vagus nerve activity. So there's super simple practices that you can do on a daily basis to help with that gut-brain connection. And that is things like breathing, meditation, cold water therapy. I don't know if you guys have heard of Wim Hof. So cold water showers, or we've got the Cape Town Sea, which is absolutely freezing, so we can go drunk in there. Tai Chi yoga. So all those things strengthen vagal tone, and that stress management is really important for the health of your gut and brain health as well. So those are just a few things. I don't know if, and exercise is a huge one as well. So I don't know if that helps or answers a little bit of your question.
Very much, thank you. Sorry, one last question.
Yeah,
you mentioned a term called probiotic and then one called prebiotic. And if you could just explain the difference. And also you mentioned a couple of foods like raw garlic, bananas, and fermented foods. Are there some tips on additional tips on any foods that really give your gut a good boost?
Yeah, so I think once again, it does depend. So if you do have severe gut health issues, then you need to go slower with the probiotic foods at first. It's worthwhile then looking at what pathogens, if there is a bacteria, like you might have SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, candida, which is a fungal overgrowth, both men and women. It just depends what you have. But generally, probiotics, the fermented food, so those are the live bacteria, you really want those in your diet because you want a variety and an abundance of gut bacteria, and that helps the variety. So those are things like sauerkraut and kimchi and beet vas and water kefir or kefir, those types of things. And then the prebiotics are a form of fiber. So the prebiotics are soluble fiber, and they are different in that they are literally the food that your gut bacteria feed off. Your gut bacteria love prebiotics. But generally you find that in most fruits and veggies. So that's why you want to eat a large or a wide variety of fruits and veggies, sort of on a daily basis as well. Because your gut bacteria, if you have a variety and an abundance, your gut bacteria are kind of like an internal pharmacy for you. So your gut bacteria actually create vitamins like vitamin K and B vitamins, and they create hormones. They're actually the largest endocrine organ, secreting over 30 hormones. So they're in charge of creating vitamins and minerals and neurotransmitters and all sorts. I mean, I'm sure you guys know 90% of serotonin is created in your gut. And 70% of your immune cells are housed in your gut. So that's why with this whole COVID thing, everyone's been speaking about your immune system. And how do you support your immune system? You support it with your gut. Your gut and your immune system are best friends because your immune system is housed in your gut, or 70% of your immune cells are found in your epithelial layer, which is a single-celled layer in your gut. So your gut and your immune system are constantly communicating with each other all the time, and your gut saying, they're best friends. So your gut saying, hey, this is an enemy and this is a friend. This is an enemy, this is a friend. So they're constantly in communication. And my personal story has just shown by healing my gut, my immune system it stopped overreacting so much. And I've noticed a huge difference in the strength of my immune system since I started healing my gut.
Kate, I wanted to add to that. I'm sure, I mean, firstly, I think it's important that people remember, my friend Iris reminded me earlier on, I do use this word a lot, clearly. Everything is a process. So nothing happens overnight, but in that process where you continued, it's that perseverance. If nutrition isn't part and parcel of your everyday norm, two things are so important. If you want to be healthy, persevere. And if you don't know, ask questions and get your team. Ask people who, Shen, great. Ask people who know. So before I forget, because this is nowhere near, we are going to go on for a while, but because we're at the apex, there are 60 people. I am going to have all of Kate's details available for private consults. She's available. She works from Sea Point. She has a lot of things on the go. I think that we'll probably do a lot more work together in collaboration. And if you like these talks, please go to my Instagram page, Conversations in the Kitchen. Every week there's actually, I might move to every 2 weeks to really get you excited. So every fortnight we're going to have a fabulous person, and so that you can book that date with me here. And now I'm going to completely go back to speaking to Kate about, so it's gathering your team. So those of you that are interested in nutrition, and it might be a first time, it is the perseverance, it is a process, and it is gathering your team. And in you answering, I think it's Andre's question, it's that thing of, as you continue this process and become part of the process, participate, the sensitivity you can start feeling. So like you said, the gut tells you. So you could have something and immediately feel like, oh, that was not a good idea, So that continued process, that perseverance and continuing the process, draws your sense, your knowledge, your connection to how your body feels when you eat. So I'm sure, you know, that's why you're probably very in tune with where your body is now.
Yeah, it's awareness and consistency are absolutely huge. And a really lovely way to see what's going on with that is just to note where there's excess or deficiency in your life. So start off, and you know, I look at the primary and the secondary food. So I look at the relationships and the spirituality and the diet but start off with your diet and say, where is there excess? You know, is there overeating or binge eating? Is there overconsumption of sugar or stimulants, caffeine and alcohol? Is there an excess of even stress? Where are there deficiencies? Is there a deficiency in nourishment? Is there a deficiency in purpose? Is there a deficiency in love? And that's, you know, a really nice way to see what's going on in your life and check out what's happening in all the different areas. It's a great way to start and to create awareness.
Brilliant. Shen, I think you had a question.
Yes. My partner's just been diagnosed with CFS, and we've moved quite swiftly onto a Mediterranean diet, which is very similar to what you're saying, basically whole foods plus fish, bit of chicken, and possibly lamb. I wanted to know, though, what do you think from your side would be the next logical, what do you think the next couple of months look like from a gut health perspective? Yeah.
So, you know, it's tricky, and also we've got to be careful. You know, I'm not a doctor, I'm a health coach. So, and I do believe with chronic fatigue syndrome, it's just the diagnosis is, and it can be a diagnosis. So I had chronic fatigue, and is it Grace has chronic fatigue, but there are different reasons. Hi Grace. There are different reasons for that. So whether it's, so what triggered mine was a bacterium. I had a very sensitive gut, and there was a lot of medication and all of that. So it depends what triggered it, whether it's a pathogen or a trauma. So that's a huge thing. Detoxification with chronic fatigue syndrome is a huge, it's worthwhile putting a lot of focus on detoxification. That's a huge start. So even things like saunas, just to add in things that I haven't added in yet, make a huge difference. But it really does, it's very difficult for me to say this is the next step, because I don't know anything about Grace's journey.
Yeah. Cool, thank you so much. And then, I mean, from our side, really appreciate you telling your story. That's wow, so well done. And then I had one last question. What deodorant do you use?
What?
What deodorant do you use?
Pure beginnings.
Deodorant's always been there's a lot of toxins there, and you've got a lot of glands under your arms, but you know, like,
yes.
Do you use a natural deodorant? Or?
Yes, it's natural, yeah. So with my household cleaning products, and this is the thing with my diet, this hasn't happened overnight. It has been a process. And that's why I'm trying to share, so that I hope to get people there quicker than it took me to get there. But I use natural cleaning products in my household. I'm hypersensitive to sound, smells, people's energy. I've always been a highly sensitive person. So if I get in a lift and the cleaner's cleaned, I can barely stay in the lift. So all my household cleaning products are natural. My deodorant's natural. I use pure glycerine soap. My dishwashing liquid's natural. I still have yet to find natural. Yeah?
Do you have an outlet you use, like Faithful to Nature, or is that like a place you go? Or?
So I use Faithful to Nature and Wellness Warehouse.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Unmute. John. John had a question.
Hi, John.
Hi. So probiotics and prebiotics and all the biotics came up obviously the most effective way to get your minerals and antioxidants and vitamins in is through a plant-based diet. There's no doubt that fresh is the way to go. So, what are your thoughts on the vitamin industry and over-the-counter supplements, multivitamins, vitamin C's, vitamin B's, and the likes?
That's a great question. So, what I believe is you start with the whole foods diet. So you start with the plant-based diet, and you go as, it depends where you are, but if you can go as close to home, as local and as seasonal as you can, that's absolutely incredible. If you can start growing any of your own herbs or veggies, absolutely amazing. Even the bacteria in the soil, we get bacteria from our soil as well. So the thing is, with our modern day lives, I do believe that we are deficient in a number of things. And what I'm seeing is that people are reaching, and I did it myself. I was desperate. I've tried almost every supplement you can find. And it was only through working with an integrative doctor and through doing my genetic tests and lab testing that I have got a very specific formula of vitamins, minerals, and herbs like an adaptogen. I use ashwagandha, which has helped me a lot with things like anxiety. So I've got like a nice little comprehensive formula of supplements, and they've made a huge, huge difference to my personal health. But it's also been very tailored to my genetics as well, which has been incredible because it's helped with my detoxification. I actually have a missing gene, my GSTM1. It's a detox gene, GSTM1. It's actually been deleted. So I need more help with my phase 2 detoxification, and there's certain supplements that can help with that, and that affects your hormones and everything else as well.
I heard you saying something about you were on a drip. I was walking. Was that a glutamine drip, or what were you saying?
Glutathione.
Glutathione. Okay. Then I also just picked up the one. I saw an interview with the guy that was like in his 80s, and he looked not a day over 70. And he was asked what is, and he said one of the main things that he avoided was aluminium, cooking with aluminium, any kind of exposure to aluminium because of the link between dementia and people with high levels of aluminium, and it kind of sticks around. It's like you mentioned the vagus nerve. It appears that what goes on Vegas stays on Vegas.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think also heavy metals is coming up over and over again as well. So heavy metals is one worth checking out. I think also even with chronic fatigue syndrome, but the heavy metals in fish like tuna and swordfish, heavy metals in water. Unfortunately, we are being exposed to more of these things, and they can wreak havoc on our bodies. We think of inflammation just from food, but inflammation is caused from trauma. Inflammation is linked to genetics at a cellular level, and inflammation is linked to things like heavy metals and those types of things as well. So and all the different, you have to start creating awareness around that 100%.
Okay, well that's it from me. There's also the environmental factors which you can't get away from. I was reading this history of the world, Bill Bryson, and it's at one point it's a lot of geology and science, and at one point he comes to the point where they discovered that lead is a great additive to fuel in order to make engines that stop the knocking effect, and it was the most miraculous product. And the industries that were producing it were well aware that, and people, it was such a crazy age, and people were like dying off in these factories, dropping like flies because of all the carbon monoxide and just the lead poisoning. and it was in parts, it was in everything. So to an extent, we're better off, as bad as things are now, we're definitely better off than what people were in the early 20th century. And
also, yeah, I mean, just as much as we don't want to become completely obsessive over certain things, because you know, things like your relationships and your spirituality and your emotional states is just as important as anything else. So we can drive ourselves crazy with the water and the pollution and all those things as well. So we do have to create a balance. But if your health is deteriorating, then there are definitely those things, that the heavy metals and those things that and you need to get down to the root cause at a cellular level. I think that's the biggest thing. You need to work.
That's what I'll take away from your story, is that it really is a case of, like, if you can't keep on repeating the same actions and expect a different result. And throwing good money after bad in terms of treatments could be like, you know, it's death around the door. But yeah, very interesting story. I'm glad you're okay now.
Yeah, so am I. Thanks, John.
Thanks, John. So anyone else who has any more questions? I mean, this is a topic that I think really deserves quality of time. Why I was so excited about tonight's talk is with my own experience. Having gone through cancer chemo a few years ago, nutrition was the thing that you can actually take into your own hands. You can, it's not just about, you know, it's not a doctor that's going to go and get your groceries, and it's not a doctor that's going to put food into your mouth. It's up to you what you choose to buy and how you choose to eat. So for me, that was my anchor. It was quite a grounding thing, and nutrition was something I could investigate. Moving forward, you know, you spoke about, and one of the things I did as well, and you're right, it's really finding out about what your own personal makeup is. You know, I shared a story with Kate yesterday about somebody I knew who had a liver problem, and she went to the doctor and said to the doctor, you know, and there were the symptoms, and she, you know, was a friend and she wasn't feeling well, and they saw the symptoms of deterioration and maybe pale skin and not feeling well and a bit queasy, and there had been antibiotics taken, but that was such a small shell of the story. The truth is, one has to kind of go into, well, actually, how are you sleeping? Are you sleeping? How are you eating? What are you actually eating? And when are you eating? And why are you eating what you're eating? And, you know, there's a much bigger story. You can't take a photograph and then create a story around a snapshot. So I think, you know, your approach and when people come and see you, really getting to their history is so important. So do you want to chat to people, just, you know, share sort of what it is when they come and see you, how you conduct that consult?
Sure, 100%. So I actually, I offer, my first consultation is complimentary. It's a 30-minute consultation. And I just ask you to fill out a health history form, which is 3 pages. And we just sit and chat through your health history, because I always say your biography is just as important as your biology. That's exactly what Elaine said. And then, yeah, if you decide to do the health coaching, then what we do is we work together for a minimum of 3 months. Elaine, sorry, you've frozen. Oh, are you there? Okay.
Yeah, I'm back.
You're back. So I offer 3-month tailored health programs. So it's all personalized. And I see my clients every week or every 2 weeks. And what we do is, depending on their health history, I provide them with education or guidance on in things relevant or things that I will think, sorry, my words, relevant topics or things that I think they'll think is interesting. And we look at different sort of dietary theories. We look, for instance, Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine and metabolic questionnaires. And we'll also do love language surveys and all sorts focused on primary and secondary food. And it's basically, you take what resonates with you, and then we start building a beautiful little toolkit that you can carry for the rest of your life. So my approach is about sustainable dietary and lifestyle changes. So we also look at, your morning and evening routines. We focus a lot on gut health as well. But a lot of it is also getting back to basics, and a lot of it's behavior change as well. So it's my clients come in with a willingness to change and to lean into the resistance, because that's often where we see the greatest growth, whether it's emotionally or spiritually or diet-wise. And so, I thought I've got my circle of life here. Would you mind if I bring that up?
Oh, I'd love you to bring that up. Absolutely.
Yeah, so this is...
Oh, fantastic.
Elaine?
Yes.
Okay, so what we do in our first session, we have a look at your circle of life, which is actually really, it's just a beautiful visual of where you're at in your life. And what we do is we go through each area: health, physical activity, home cooking, home environment, relationships, social life, joy, spirituality, creativity, finances, career, and education. And for instance, if you can you see my cursor here, my little precursor wobbling around? So for instance, you feel completely satisfied with your health. It's not something you'd like to work on in the 3 months that we work together, then you can put a dot at this end of the spectrum, closer to the red, for complete satisfaction. If you feel completely dissatisfied, you move closer to the little dot in the middle. And obviously you can work it up to 50% or 60% or 70%. And so you put a dot on each of these areas, and we speak through each area, and then we play a little bit of dot to dot. And you will see that if you look at the bottom right-hand corner, you can sort of see, once you play dot to dot, you can see sort of where there's a little bit of deficiency, or where certain areas need a little bit more work. And so we come up with 1 month and 3 month goals to work towards. And we focus on your sort of 3 lowest points. And the idea is to bring the circle out, more joy, more creativity, more movement, etc. So that's basically what we do in our first session. And then everything sort of progresses from there. That's just sort of a brief little bit of what I do.
That's excellent. I love that. I think the diagram is really important. When we have a visual, we suddenly realize everything affects everything else. It's not separate. Our brain isn't just floating around while our body's doing other things, even though I do teach yoga and I have seen that. But it's really collaborating even within our bodies and our own structures for the healing to happen. But you had mentioned something, and this is such an important point. It's very easy to give people. I've heard people say to me, well, you cook nicely, or you healthy, or give me some tips, and the resistance. And you said, so the thing is, you find you have people that do come and they have committed because they're ready to lean into that resistance. Because quite frankly, I used to think, why don't people want to be well? Why don't they want to be healthy? Like, it's just the thing that I've always been it's been so important to me. But because it takes a lot of work, because you have to take responsibility, and not just for what you eat, but how you think and how you move and how you breathe, and you've got to participate. Whereas the Western, I feel like a sneeze is coming. Maybe it's just sneezing on the truth. Oh. But the Western philosophy really kind of allows you to just go, hand it over, Hand it over and somebody else will look after your body. You know, a scientist will do the best it can, but it's your body. So we have to actually take responsibility and be prepared, be brave enough to go there. But, you know, that reiteration of like, we're never alone doing that. There are people like you, there are coaches, there are health professionals, it's gathering your team.
100%. Yeah, I just hope that with my story, people do realize that the power really does lie within, and our bodies have such an innate wisdom, and it's when you choose to really start listening on a deeper level. And I hadn't listened for a very, very long time. I'd chosen not to listen. And it's when you start creating awareness about the foods that are nourishing you on a deeper level, the people that are nourishing you on a deeper level, you know, what really actually works for you and feeds you, you really do, the power really does lie within. It's huge, and it's hard. The inner work is hard. The heart work, the mind work, it's difficult. It's not easy. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, the most difficult thing I've ever done. But now, after 6 or 7 years, it's sustainable. I will be forever growing, but I'm carrying that health with me for the next few decades, which is incredible. So it was all 100% worth it.
Absolutely. And I mean, there is that tendency for all of us, like human nature, where, until you're taken to the cliff, you're like, I'm not going to feel well in the morning, but like, it's okay, it's okay. But, when things are pretty extreme and dire and you don't have the option. I mean, I stood at the cliff at one point and there was just 2 options. Looking down that very steep, like, oh shit, and it's death, or turning around, and then you just got to deal with what is there. If you choose that life path, but the benefits are so worth it. They're so worth it. So again, I keep on wanting to say, like, we don't have to do it alone, like, because it can be so. For me, the 2 years going through chemo and post chemo, there was a lot of, I had to work with food, with the issues of food, with the conversation with food, with the relationship with food, even though I'm healthy and I always chose healthy things, but a lot of things came to the surface for me. And I entered a whole new phase of menopause, and which is your body does a whole, like, how's your auntie? My auntie's fine now. But it took a while, and a lot of it, and I don't know how you, but I think a lot of it has so much to do with, yes, what we actually, what we're doing in action, but what you're doing in thought has so much power. I mean, you've got to eat with love. If you're going to eat that thing, and the hunger is not because it's physical hunger, but it's hunger of joy, and or feeling deprived of joy or relationship or connection. It's having a coach like you to come and chat to, or people that have gone through that experience, or coming on to conversations in the kitchen with Elaine. So you don't feel like you.
Responsibility. No matter where you are in your life, support and accountability is huge. We all need it. We thrive with connection. That's one thing we've learned over COVID times as well. So ultimately, I'm an accountability coach, really. I'm the self-care piece.
Absolutely.
I've got one. It just came to me now. The Fat, Sick and Nearly Dead, a couple of years ago, where the guy he did the juice fast for 30 days, filmed the whole thing, and he was on a lot of, he had a skin condition, he was taking steroids and all sorts of things, and he managed to get himself through that. Initially, he did it just with the juice fast and doing all that, and then there was a follow-up movie where he'd actually just gone and done a balanced sort of plant-based diet, and he wasn't just doing that anymore. It was the extreme. And I know that you've got feelings on this too with your healing. Yeah, so juicing, let's bring that in.
Yes. Oh, juicing. Oh my gosh, I love juicing. What a question. What a question. He was actually, I think he was either one of our lecturers, or there was almost a whole module in our health coaching about him. Was his name Joe? I've just gone blank, so many years ago. But yeah, I'm 100% for juicing. I like to juice more veggies than fruit most of the time, but obviously fruit as well. There's nothing wrong with fruit. I absolutely love fruit, and I'm all for the greens. So go big on your greens. Yeah, greens are so powerful, and your cruciferous veggies as well, which have sulforaphane, especially broccoli. Sprouts have sulforaphane, which also aid the detoxification, your phase 2 detoxification. So go big on your cruciferous, even juicing your cruciferous veggies, even cabbage. I mean, cabbage you can juice, cabbage you can pop, you can ferment. Cabbage is cheap and it's amazing. And any greens and all greens. Yeah, no, I'm all for juicing, 100%.
The cruciferous vegetables are vital. It was what I learned when I did the chemo. I worked with I had a Chinese doctor, so I did a lot of all the tests that you did. I mean, he was a GP, plus he had studied Chinese medicine. So I also did the glutathione, and I had a lot of the infusions, but the cruciferous vegetables were at the top of the list of a must. Hello, little Lexi. John's little daughter is waving furiously. She's so gorgeous. He's got 2 stunning little girls. I'm so biased. They're like my nieces. So I agree, and I can't say it even more. I keep on saying, I think John thinks I sound like a broken record. But green. Have at least a plate of green every day.
For those of you who are wondering what cruciferous veggies are, though, that's like your kale, your broccoli, your cauliflower, your watercress, radishes, those types of veggies. The list goes on and on. Brussels sprouts, etc. 5 servings of greens a day. I say yeah.
Yes. Michelle just asked something. Kate, could you share in the feed the genetic tests? Did you do it at the end, or you could do it at the end? So genetic tests, I did one as well. But where do you recommend if people wanted to go and have genetic tests? Should they go under, with a counselor like you, with a coach, to their doctor? Is it something they can just go and do?
So with the genetic testing, I use the company 3x4. I think they're amazing. I love how their report is formatted. It's like a 25-page report, but it's beautiful. It's got pictures. It's really simple to understand. It's color-coded. And basically, I can organize the test for you, and they actually courier to you. You do a little cheek swab. You pop it in, you call the courier, and the courier comes and collects. So it's super simple. It can take, I think during COVID time, it's taking a little bit longer. So it can take 3 weeks to get the report. I'm still being mentored. So I would then refer you to an expert practitioner, and they will do an hour session with you, going through, or maybe even a little bit longer, maybe an hour and a half, just depends. And they will go through the report with you and explain everything to you. And then you can decide if you want to work alongside, for instance, me, or with me or another practitioner for a longer period of time to instill that sort of dietary and lifestyle change, or you can do it on your own. It's completely up to you. I hope that answers the question. I can send you more info.
That sounds great. I don't know if, pleasure. Daphne just said another great, interesting evening. Thank you for joining, Daphne. Michelle, I don't know if you're still in the house, if that answered your question. But we can definitely add all these little details. What I do is Friday morning, I send whoever's been on, so I'll send Kate's details first thing tomorrow morning. Not first thing, I lie. I'm going to send it before lunchtime by about 11, between 11 and 12. Those of you who haven't been on, my number is on the chat. You can just get hold of me, send me a WhatsApp if you want to find out about the speakers. Every week there's going to be someone new, but like I said, we're going to start doing it every fortnight. So every 2 weeks, I'm going to have somebody on. This is the beginning, you know, so please don't think at any point I'm going to lose interest. My interest is only just perked up. This, I have full intention of it growing, of doing retreats, of us traveling, of us collaborating when we can get together. We can do a couple a year, you know, in live, real time. And the beauty of this continuing the online is that it doesn't matter where you are in the world. So please just keep on tapping in, keep on sending me messages, and go to my Instagram page. Anybody else? Kelly. Kelly says, Kate is amazing. She's been guiding me with my health, and you won't find a more passionate person, I'm sure. Caring and informative, love listening to you tonight. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Kelly. Kelly, won't you put your surname in so that I just can see and maybe get hold of you and tell you about all the other things that we're doing. This is how we build. Thank you, Kelly. Katie, do me a little favor and just make sure the surname is there. Book, thank you. Anybody else, any more questions? I know you want to ask. For John.
Turn this off quick.
Yes, John.
Also, with the diet, I know that there's been cases where there's been significant improvements with children with autism, ADHD, things like that, where they did dietary interventions where, like, children that were taken to you know, doctors, and essentially, like, no one could figure out, and they were medicating, and then eventually, I don't know, documentary I saw, and they made huge breakthroughs by putting them, you know, working out what their dietary needs were, what they were sensitive to, things like that. So just something I was wondering if you'd come across that in your work.
So not necessarily in my coaching, but funnily enough, exactly what you're saying, that GAPS diet that I did, the gut and psychology syndrome, is basically based around that. So it was adapted, I think first it was Dr. Haas, and then there was a woman by the name of Elaine Seidel who wrote Breaking the Vicious Cycle, and she was able to reverse, I hope I'm right here, but she was able to reverse her daughter's ulcerative colitis, which is a form of IBD, inflammatory bowel disease, with this diet. And then a woman by the name of Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride adapted her Breaking the Vicious Cycle, and she wrote this book called The Gut and Psychology Syndrome, which is it's the gut healing protocol that I did. And a lot of it was tested and done with autistic children, behavioral problems, dyspraxia, depression, anxiety, etc. And she made huge headway with those kids with those different conditions through the gut healing protocol. So yeah, you're 100% right with that. I haven't had personal experience with that.
Right.
There we go. Just mute a little bit. There we go. Amanda, Mr. Any advice? Okay. So Amanda's question is, so she missed some of it, but this is such an important question. Any advice on anti-inflammatory and autoimmune tips?
There's a lot, and it also depends on your autoimmune as well. Yeah, so that is very, with my, I've had clients with autoimmune, and they work with an integrative doctor, and I'll work alongside the integrative doctor. And then I meet them where they're at with their dietary and lifestyle changes. Yeah, it means a big one, but it depends on the person 100%.
I want to add to that because just that people know you do consults on Zoom, because some of you that are tuning in, I know you live in Joburg, some of you are even overseas currently, so that people know there can be individual consults on Zoom.
Yes, I've got clients, yeah, all over and in South Korea, and there's a woman who's just got in contact in the UK. So yeah, happy to do Zoom sessions. And also I even refer some clients to some integrative doctors in South Africa, and then they do the blood work wherever in the UK or wherever they may be, but they work alongside a South African integrative doctor. So that's also possible as well.
Okay, great. So Manta, I think that answers, there can be more in depth there. Great, lovely. Anyone else with any more sort of nutritional questions? No question. There's no silly questions here. This is the place where a friend of mine that one of my clients that I teach yoga to, he doesn't come on. And when I chatted to him, I was like, why don't you come on? He said, well, it's a cooking show. I'm like, really? Have you ever come on? So why I brought it up is some of you are newer who haven't been on. There are a couple of names. Most of you that I'm looking at in my front page have those. But if you share this with people, please. The reason why I do it in the kitchen is because there's a real informality about it. I don't want to, at this hour, be having another formal Zoom meeting, any formal meeting. There's more honest, easygoing conversations that can happen. And in the conversations, there's something interesting, something creative, something stimulating, something inspiring, and something educational. But that is the reason why I'm doing it in the kitchen. So I just thought it did, by the way. So yeah, just keep on telling your friends and pop on. I want to see if there are any more chats. And
Elaine, if you don't mind, if I could just go back to Amanda's question with the autoimmune.
Yes.
Amanda, I'm not sure if you know of Dr. Mark Hyman. And so maybe if you don't know of him, he's absolutely incredible. He was one of our lecturers for my Health Coaching Institute. He's an American functional medicine doctor, and he's absolutely incredible. So if you do want some, he's got beautiful recipe books, and his website, his Instagram is super informative. He works a lot with autoimmune cases as well. So if you want some extra really good information, Dr. Mark Hyman is awesome.
Fantastic. We could maybe even write that into the chat. Hyman, how do you spell that?
Hyman.
You got caught on your string, don't you? Well, be quick about it. The Admiral's got something he would like to give you, Mr. Manchester.
Somebody's got some.
Glad tidings. I commanded her myself.
Who's the full blast?
Thank you very much, Admiral.
And just see who's entertaining us besides me. There we go. Oh, the blissful silence. Okay. Who else? Has anyone got any more questions? Last few questions for Kate. Oh, pleasure, man. So nice to see you.
Okay, anyone else is going to jump on?
Love it. Good and faithful, John. Good.
Yeah, let me just change webcam there, and we're good.
Yeah.
The blood alkalinity, I believe that there's a fanatic friend that says that like disease can't propagate in an alkaline environment, and that you can fight all sorts of onsets with that. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I try and as much as possible have science backed information where I can. I do have a nice little graph of alkaline and acidic foods, and I personally do believe that there is something to it. But to be 100% honest, I don't know the science behind that, so I can't tell you 100%. It's not something that I work with a lot in my practice. So yeah, I can't tell you a clear one on that. I like to be science driven if possible.
Lovely. Any more questions? It's such an interesting topic, I think that's why everybody stays and wants to just hear a little bit more on.
And I've got like 7 months worth of gut health resources that I just want to share. There's just so much to it. It's incredible. I love it.
Yes, that's why people aren't going away. Sue says, thanks, Kate. So interesting and informative. Pleasure, Sue. Thank you for joining again.
Thanks.
I'm finding, even in the work that I do, and I chatted to Kate yesterday saying this, most of you know I teach yoga full-time, but when I work with private clients, for me it's becoming, over the past few years, more and more important to not just work on the physical body, but it's very important that people address good nutrition, because you can't get them to do good movement if they're putting rubbish in their body. It needs to be like, quality needs to go in, not only on the outside.
Definitely. And I think it's also about, I think what a lot of people do is they think, I'm just going to eat, everything, and then I'll do a 2-day juice cleanse, or I'll do some kind of detox. But what we really want to be promoting is living a detox lifestyle. So supporting our pathways on a cellular level on a daily basis, because that's when the change happens. It's with the consistency. It's not that once-off juice cleanse. So that's what I try my best to live, a detox lifestyle. And yes, I do a detox like a proper detox every, say, 3 or 4 months. But I think, yeah, that's sort of the message to get across, is really to live that detox lifestyle. It really is about consistency.
I totally agree with you.
With the detox comes sort of a clarity in the mind and a spiritual connectedness. It's incredible what happens if you do a fast or a detox. Something opens up as well, which is, yeah, something on a deeper level. Or that's what I found personally.
I mean, we start realizing how affected we are by the relationship we have with food. And that it's they're cultural norms that revolve around food. A lot of us come from cultures that are very affected by and governed by food, sitting around the table, sharing knowledge, hence me being in the kitchen now. But it's also that it is medicine. It really is medicine. And in a lifestyle where we've got so busy nonstop, we lost the basic and kind of primary pleasure, the primary connection with food. with how to relate to it. There's a detachment because we've been in a hurry. So, you know, I found this period, and I mean, I'm sure you did with clients you have. We're at home, can't be running around. So you're near home, you're near your kitchen, you aren't going out that much. How the relationship has changed, or how people have to look at their relationship with how they feed themselves, which is an interesting thing because, you know, in a time for me when it's been very busy, I've often landed up eating out far more often than I should have. And this time during COVID, there wasn't a lot of that going on. It was, you know, really making your own food. So I'm sure you must have seen quite a shift with your clients.
Yeah, there was, you know, there was a shift with bowel movements. There was a shift with balancing hormones. Yeah, but then also some, you know, some people said, oh my gosh, I just love the fact that I can spend more time home cooking. And others were saying, Kate, please just get me away from the fridge, you know. So yeah, so also the cravings kicked in with some, and that constant eating as well, I think, during a stressful time. So yeah, a lot came into play without a doubt. And mindful eating is something that, yeah, I teach in my practice a lot. I spend a lot of time on that, just aiding your digestive system with heightening your senses, your taste, your smell, chewing your food properly to aid your digestion, just simple things like that we forget. And not being on the technology when you're eating, actually sit down at the table and eat. So it's all those simple things, but you know, it's these things that we all know, but we're not doing it on a daily basis as well.
Yeah, it really takes effort, you know, because we've had such busy lives. One of the best experiences for me, and you're just saying, you know, take time to chew and swallow and eat your food, was I went on one of the yoga teacher trainings I did many years in India, was at an ashram. And for 10 days at this ashram, when you walked into the dining hall, we sat on the floor, but you were silent. And we had dinner in silence. And it was absolutely amazing. I mean, initially there was this awkwardness, but it was there was nothing to it other than just taste your food, chew your food, swallow your food, because most of the time we're doing 1,000 other things. So it was something when I did a yoga retreat, I held my own last year in Italy, weren't all the meals, but the dinner was in silence. And it was so wonderful.
That really is wonderful. And you know, what you're saying is there's a difference between eating when you're calm and feeling grounded, but when we're in our fight or flight mode, physiologically, our body acts like we're running away from a lion or we're in danger. So it actually shuts off functions that aren't, or lowers functions that it believes aren't that important. So when you're in your fight or flight mode, it lowers your immune system and your digestion. So people wonder why, when they're super stressed, why they're getting sick all the time, why they have digestive problems. It's because it's a physiological response by your body. So you really want to be in that rest and digest mode, which is your parasympathetic nervous system. It's part of your autonomic nervous system. And I think that's also for people to get a better understanding of your rest and digest and your fight or flight mode, because it's huge. You heal in your parasympathetic response, or your rest and digest response. It's also known as your feed and breed. And that's where the healing happens, in the calm, grounded space, not in the frantic space where you're breathing shallow, where your heart rate is up, where your blood pressure's up. That's not where the healing happens.
I hear you, and it also makes me think there was something that for me became very important, and I realized this year is don't wait for me, but I think it's quite a good application. Don't wait to eat until you start like hungry, and don't eat until you're full.
Yes, exactly. There's something called hara hachibu. I think it's a Japanese term, and it says eat till you're 80% full. And I bring that in with my clients all the time with the mindful eating. It's not about deprivation. It's not about you can eat at any time, but don't eat until you completely sort of oversatiated. Eat until you're 80% full.
Someone was saying to me, the French have a term, like they say, eat until you're satisfied, which is very different to eating as Jews do. I'm Jewish, until you're full. Full doesn't quite mean full, it means full, so full you're going to pop, until you ache. That's how I grew up, Friday night you ate until you were sore. And when you were sore, like, oh, I'm full now. Despite you going to have another piece of cheesecake after that, but that's definitely a very good thing to implement. So any final questions as we just, and I know we've kept, this has been amazing, but I'm just becoming aware of the time for Kate. So is there anybody else that would like to just ask any last questions before I am just checking through? I have 2 pages here. Anyone still wanting last minute? Okay, so nobody is one. Yes, Eva.
Just one short question, Kate. Do you eat sugar?
No, I don't eat sugar. No.
Oh, okay. No honey or?
Okay, I do. Okay, so I do eat honey, but it's refined sugar that I stay away from.
Okay.
I try and limit as much as possible. I try and get my sweetness from fruits and sweet root vegetables like beetroots and sweet potato and dates and that kind of thing. So even when I bake with, it'll be dates and sweet potatoes and that kind of thing. I do eat honey though, not every day. When I was on the GAPS diet, I realized how little I actually needed, and I felt so much better off the sugar. So that's been huge for me. I think 2 of the biggest things or 3 were the dairy, the sugar, and gluten as well. They made a huge difference, and I've just, for the past, say, 6 or 7 years, I've just avoided them because I feel so much better off them.
So how do you deal with restaurants? If you go to restaurants and they ask you, okay, what would you like to eat? No dairy, no gluten, no sugar?
Yes. So I actually, with my personality in the beginning, I used to find it really difficult. And this is why I say it's a process. I had to become a bit more assertive, because sometimes I'd feel bad years ago and I'd say, oh, I'll just eat this. And then I felt so terrible. And it became, it got to the point where it wasn't worth it anymore. So, that especially I'm in Cape Town, so the restaurants are incredible. I mean, I even have ramen that's gluten, dairy, and soy free. They leave the soy out of the ramen, which is incredible. So they're incredible. My boyfriend cooks amazing, and he's half Italian, so like pasta's his life, and now he's into the gluten-free things, which is awesome. And my friends, when I go to their home, they're very open to the gluten and dairy-free cooking. So it's wonderful to be supported. It's a lot easier.
Okay, thank you.
It really is I also had to cut out all of the wheat, sugar, dairy, and it's a continuous sort of process. Now it's a lifestyle and I'm used to it, but just, ever you ask about restaurants, and I have a housemate, and we both are pretty much, I'm more inclined to eat the way you do, Kate, but I pretty much cook plant-based, and everything is fresh, but I'm not adverse to having a piece of fish if it's good, and but I don't have any dairy. But we cook, and we love cooking, and it's always fresh food, and we sit down and we always go, we love our food. And so what has happened is it's actually become more and more difficult to eat out, unless I'm taken to the most sterling restaurant in the whole wide world. For me is Homespun, which is in Tableview. But other than that, don't bother. Cook your own food. But it does become quite hard. It becomes quite hard because, I mean, I don't know about you, but you can start tasting when food doesn't have that nourishment.
Definitely. And you know what, for I'd say for about 5 years, I barely ate out. I was super, super strict. But I've got to the point now where my gut's healed quite nicely. So if there is a little bit of this or that, I'm okay with it now. Like, I don't react as I used to. So I've taken a lot more of a gentler approach now. And I focus on what I do the majority of the time. So every now, you know, if I'm going to have a beer or whatever, that's still gluten, but then I won't have gluten in my food. So the majority of the time I'm gluten, dairy, and sugar-free, but every now and again things do come into play. And yeah, I'm just a lot gentler with myself because I'm not having those reactions like I used to.
It's so important to find that balance. I had 2 years of extreme, and also just coming to meeting that place of balance. And, you know, balance in your choices, but balance also that the dialogue in the head isn't so harsh anymore. So
that dialogue's important.
Yeah. Oh, there's a continuous, the yogic word is chitta vritti, continuous sort of director that ambles and bumbles and mumbles along continuously, and only about maybe 1/10 of what it says is of value. The rest is just put it into the spam box, can be deleted. So I'm seeing if anybody else wants to just tune in and ask any more questions. Otherwise, Kate, I just wanted to, before it gets too late for you, just say thank you so much for this evening's talk. It was absolutely amazing. I am please, all of you are free to stay in my kitchen and hang out, but just that you know, there was a record amount of people tonight, 60 people that came to the conversation. Lisa quickly has, you need to read the Surrender Experiment, Revoices. In your head, yes, I know. I did read it. I'm an artist. There are always voices in my head.
Just ordered that book on Take-A-Lot, so thank you. It's arriving. It's coming. Well, it's coming soon. I'm super excited about it.
That's confirmation that that was the right thing to order. Hey, it's brilliant. Lisa says it. I listened to the audio and just loved it. So, Kate, thank you so much. Please come back to the kitchen, and I look forward to further collaborations and conversations. And I am going to send RWS. I'm not going to send RWS. I don't know who you are, but I'm pleased that you tuned in, RWS. So I'm going to send everybody your information. If anybody wants consults with Kate, she's in Sea Point, whether it's online or live. And yeah, I can't express how thrilled I am that you came and how important it is to address gut health. So yeah, to being healthy, and yeah, absolutely. And to coming back to soon again. So thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, Elaine. It's been awesome.
Oh, pleasure. Absolute pleasure. So yeah.
We'll be having many teas together.
Good. I look forward to that. Absolutely. So
and thank you everyone for joining us.
Wonderful. Lovely. Thank you, Kate. We'll speak again tomorrow.
Cheers. Bye.